You've already talked to yourself today, probably before you even got out of bed. Why is it so cold? Where did I put my keys? I look tired. That running commentary in your head? That's self-talk, and it never fully stops. Most people feel a little weird about it, especially when they get caught. Some people even wonder if it means something is wrong with them. The answer, backed by decades of research, is a very clear no. Talking to yourself is one of the most universal human behaviors that exists. Research suggests most, if not all, people engage in some form of self-talk every day. So in this video, what it actually is, where it comes from, and what it does to you. Because what you say to yourself, and how, matters more than most people realize. Let's start with what self-talk actually is, and what it isn't. Self-talk is the verbal narration inside your head, directed at yourself. It's different from daydreaming, mental imagery, or just recalling a memory. It's the voice that coaches, judges, plans, and talks you through your day. To understand self-talk, we need to go back to childhood. Way back. Children self-talk out loud constantly. Watch any kid playing alone for 5 minutes. They narrate actions, give instructions, rehearse conversations, solve problems aloud. In the 1930s, psychologist Lev Vygotsky made a radical proposal about this behavior. He argued that children's out-loud self-talk wasn't random. It was how they developed. By talking to themselves, children were practicing the rules they learned from adults. They were using language to regulate their own behavior and emotions. Then something fascinating happens as kids grow older. The voice goes inside. The out-loud self-talk of childhood becomes the silent inner dialogue of adulthood. Vygotsky called this internalization, and it's considered one of his greatest insights. So that inner voice you have, it started as actual talking, out loud, as a child. Scientists believe adults still use out-loud self-talk in high-stress or complex situations, which explains muttering while assembling furniture, or narrating while cooking alone. You're not losing your mind. You're using a cognitive tool you've had since childhood. Now let's look at what's actually happening in the brain when you self-talk. Here's what makes self-talk so hard to study. It's spontaneous and mostly unconscious. You can't tell people, self-talk now, and get natural results. The observation changes it. So scientists are still working out basic questions, like which brain regions are involved. What we do know, self-talk activates language areas, Broca's and Wernicke's areas. These are the same areas used in actual conversation, just turned inward. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between talking to others and talking to yourself. That's partly why self-talk has real effects. The brain takes it seriously. When you call yourself stupid, your brain processes that like hearing it from someone else. And when you encourage yourself, the brain registers that as genuine encouragement too. This is why what you say to yourself is not just internal noise. It's input. Input that shapes how you feel, how you perform, and what you believe about yourself. Scientists are still mapping the full picture, but what they've found so far is striking. And that leads us to the part most people care about most. Does self-talk actually work? Let's start with instructional self-talk. This is self-talk that coaches you through a task. Elbow up, follow through, keep your eye on the ball. That's instructional self-talk. Research on collegiate tennis players found it increased concentration and accuracy. Athletes have known this for decades. The science just confirmed what they were already doing. Instructional self-talk works because it narrows your focus to what matters right now. It prevents your brain from drifting to anxiety about the outcome, keeps you in process. This isn't just for athletes. It applies to any task requiring skill and concentration. The next time you're learning something hard, try narrating the steps out loud, even if it sounds silly, especially if it sounds silly. That's often a sign it's working. There's also research showing self-talk helps with memory tasks and problem solving. Saying what you're doing as you do it, like reading aloud, helps it stick. The voice in your head can be a coach, but it can also be a very harsh critic. And most people don't choose which one shows up. It just does. That's what we need to talk about next. The darker side of self-talk. Negative self-talk is when your inner voice becomes your harshest critic. I always mess things up. Nobody actually likes me. I'm just not smart enough. Most people experience some of this. The problem is when it becomes the dominant voice. Research links high levels of negative self-talk to increased anxiety in both kids and adults. And those who ruminate, replaying problems over and over, experience deeper depression. Rumination is different from reflection. Reflection moves toward insight. Rumination circles. Negative self-talk also shrinks what you're willing to try. The inner critic wins before you start. It talks you out of applying, speaking up, reaching out, trying again. Here's the part that makes this especially important. Most negative self-talk isn't accurate. It's not a truth-telling machine. It's a pattern machine. It repeats what it's been fed. If you were criticized a lot growing up, that voice often echoes those old criticisms. The voice sounds like you, but it was written by someone else a long time ago. Recognizing that gap between the voice and the truth is where change begins. And that's exactly what the next section is about. How to actually work with this. Now the good stuff. Motivational self-talk, and why it works differently than you think. Most people think positive self-talk means pumping yourself up with false confidence. That kind of hollow affirmation can backfire, especially if you don't believe it. Effective motivational self-talk isn't about lying to yourself. It's about redirecting focus. "I can handle this" is more effective than "I am amazing," because the brain accepts it. One step at a time works better than "I'll crush this" for sustained performance. Asking yourself questions is another powerful technique. Can I do this? Beats I can do this. The question mode activates a search process in the brain. It hunts for reasons you can. Research has shown this interrogative self-talk outperforms declarative self-talk consistently. So instead of "I'm going to do well," try "Will I do well?" What would that look like? Self-talk also regulates emotion. Just as talking to a friend helps, talking to yourself can too. Verbalizing what you're feeling, naming the emotion out loud, reduces its intensity. Brain scans show that naming an emotion activates the prefrontal cortex and calms the amygdala. So the next time you're overwhelmed, try saying what you feel, out loud if needed. There's a specific type of self-talk that researchers find especially powerful: distanced self-talk. Instead of talking to yourself as "I," you use your own name, or "you," or "they." So instead of "I'm so nervous," it becomes "Alex, you're nervous. That's okay. What helps?" It sounds small. The effect is anything but small. Research shows distanced self-talk reduces emotional reactivity during stressful situations. It also helps with anxiety in social situations, meeting new people, public speaking. Why does it work? Because it creates psychological distance from the threatening experience. You shift from being inside the experience to observing it, like watching yourself in a movie. When you're observing, you can think more clearly. Emotion floods recede. Options appear. Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan has done the most extensive work on this. His book, Chatter, goes deep into the science and into how to actually use it. Try it this week. Use your name when you're coaching yourself through something hard. Your name? You've handled harder things than this. What's one step forward? Keep it realistic. Keep it kind. Those two things together are more powerful than either alone. What if the negative voice is so loud you can't just reframe it? That's where CBT comes in. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is one of the most researched psychological treatments. Part of what CBT does is work directly on the patterns and tone of self-talk. CBT therapists teach you to catch the thought, not just feel it, then examine it. Is this actually true? What's the evidence? What's being left out? Then replace it, not with something false, but with something more balanced and accurate. Catch, examine, replace. That's the cycle. Over time, the brain learns new defaults. Research shows CBT consistently improves outcomes for anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. You don't need a therapist to start applying some of these tools on your own. Journaling is one way, writing down the thought, then questioning it on paper. Another is simply naming the cognitive distortion. That's catastrophizing. That's all or nothing. The voice loses some power when you can name what it's doing. It goes from tyrant to pattern. These aren't magic fixes, they're skills.
and skills take repetition to develop, but the trajectory changes the moment you start. The brain is plastic. It responds. Here's the most important thing to understand about self-talk. That inner voice is not going anywhere. It's with you for life. That's not a warning. That's the setup for the most important question. If this voice is your lifelong companion, what kind of companion do you want it to be? A bully you're stuck with? Or a coach who believes in you even when you don't? You don't choose to have the voice, but you have more say over its character than you think. Every time you notice a harsh thought and choose a kinder one, you're training it. Every time you use your name and create distance, you're building a skill. Every time you catch a cognitive distortion and name it, you weaken its grip. This is slow work, but it's cumulative, and it compounds. The inner voice of someone who's worked on this for a year sounds genuinely different, not silenced, not perfect. Just kinder, more accurate, more on your side. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe. New psychology every week. See you next time. Be a little kinder to yourself today than you were yesterday.